Selamun Aleyküm ve Rahmetullahi ve Berekatuhu. Eyzu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve ehlul ukdeden min lisani yefkahu kavli. Inshallah, we will continue with the 23rd word as a part of our journey to be human. Last week we studied the first remark, and we will continue with the first remark.
So Osman says no thanks, so I am taking it then.
Okay, Jazakallah.
So we were studying the second chapter, and the first remark, the beginning of first remark was in last week's discussion, talking about man's position in the existence. And as it starts in the first paragraph, man is made in so much of a way that he is needy of everything. Human is in need of everything, and his needs are spread all over the globe, all over the existence actually. So the way that he desires for a flower, he desires for the spring, the same way he desires for the paradise. This is who human is. So human is not satisfied with anything limited. The same aspect that asks for flower asks for paradise. So this being my truth, how can I, so who is going to fulfill all those? And I am very much needy, but I am incapable of providing them anyways. So how am I going to solve this rhythm? As if I'm in a dilemma, I cannot get out of it, I am very much needy, but I have no power. So for such a man, the author was saying that this man needs to seek refuge at the court of an absolutely powerful one, who will close the door of this huge world and open the door of the hereafter. So this is a fundamental need, or the only solution, if you like, for humans' problem. Existential problem, existential crisis. Then he was taking it from there, and in the second paragraph he was saying that thus for men in this position, the only true object of worship will be one in whose hand are the reins of all things. So the one that I'm going to worship should be the one who controls everything, with whom are the treasuries of all things, who sees all things and present everywhere, who is beyond space, exempt from impotence, free of fault, and far above all defects, and all-powerful one of glory, and all-compassionate one of beauty, and all-wise one of perfection. So based on my neediness, I am arriving to the conclusion that only such a one can fulfill my needs. So thus the analysis in here starts from human self, human's neediness and powerlessness. And more or less, this is where we left, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. The way to the Creator starts from yourself. That's really interesting. Like, as if you are given everything needed to reach Him, to understand Him, to learn about Him. And when you take it that way, the verse makes more sense. Because it says we created men in the best form. And you see that, yes, that's true. I have everything needed to reach my Creator. With all my desires, all my needs, all my weaknesses, I don't need anything else to reach my Creator. Everything's there. So this also reminds me the fact that we are being created, what they say, in His face.
In His image.
Is in His image, yes. So, and you can easily confirm that, right? When you look at yourself, you see your Creator. because it's like the key and the lock, right? It fits, it's perfectly fits. What you need tells you about who can sustain it. And as you were saying, the fact that I'm not only in need of a flower, but at the same time the entire spring, not only a love of a friend, but love of the entire universe. And I realize, when I ask who can sustain all these needs, I find my creator. It's really interesting. I don't know, like you starting from as quote unquote valueless as yourself. You don't have anything, but what it leads you is just everything.
And in here, he is saying that true object of worship is someone. So that means, and this was discussed last week as well, it is inevitable for a human to worship someone. And worshiping in this sense is realizing your neediness, and now I'm going to be thankful to someone who provides me. So who shall I be thankful to? This is the question. And in the second paragraph, the author is saying that you should be, or the only option for me to be thankful towards is someone who keeps everything in order, who is behind all the things all at once. It's not like part of it is being sustained by this person, the other part is being sustained by the sun, the rest is being sustained by the earth, whatever. So I guess this object of worship should be underlined over there. What they mean by worship and object of worship.
Assalamu alaikum. I really like the way we started the topic as far as we're starting off with our neediness, just the mere fact that we are needy individuals in every aspect of our being points to something. So this is a key which unlocks treasures. And so basically I have all the tools to reach that which I'm looking to worship. And that's wonderful. And I'm just trying to understand where would I go in error, as far as, I know there's also human ego, right? What is the role of the human ego? I'm trying to see where can I go wrong? Is it the human ego that would come in? But again, everything is given for a purpose. So maybe, how can I utilize my human ego to unlock the treasure? That's the question.
Jazakallah khair, that's a great question. And I guess ego should be part of our journey, I assume, that when we study the topic of to be human, it was part of the suggestions, I guess, and it's even if it's not, I think it should be great. It should be there, as Osman says. A great question. So for now, if I want to share what I think is, as you were saying, like everything has a purpose. I see that. And when I look at my ego, strangely enough, has many different faces, right? Sometimes claim lordship over things, sometimes claim ownership, authorship of things. Sometimes I can do things, sometimes I can, quote unquote, create things. Sometimes I like this, some things, sometimes I hate things. And I have such connections through my ego, right? It's my ego that says it's me creating things or it's me liking things. So without such a sense of reality, I assume, it will be really hard to know about creatorship, or it would be hard to know about loving something or being loved. So it's like a starting point to understand things. It's like an example. So to teach a child something, what you do, you always give examples. And you say, oh, think about this apple, it has such and such color, so, or the shape, and so sun is also, has such a shape. Or you say that you see this apple is bigger than or smaller than the watermelon, you see, and the sun also bigger than the earth. Because you cannot show sun or earth to the child, you show watermelon and the apple instead. And through them, you try to explain things. Maybe ego is also having such an utility. It's giving us to give an example. Like neither the apple is sun, nor our ego is the Lord, but still it serves the purpose. It tells us something.
Okay. Okay. We are reading from the 23rd word, the second chapter, and finishing up on the first remark. Yes, O man, you have two aspects. One is that of creation, good, acts, and positivity. O man, you have two aspects. That one of these two aspects is that of creation, good, acts, and positivity. The other is the aspect of destruction, non-existence, evil, negativity, and passivity. The other aspect is destruction, non-existence, evil, negativity, and passivity. In regard to the first aspect, you are lower than a bee or sparrow, and weaker than a spider or fly. So in relation to the first aspect of that looks to creation, good acts, and positivity, we are lower. I am lower than a bee or a sparrow and weaker than a spider or a fly. Whereas in regard to the second aspect, in regard to destruction, non-existence, evil, negativity, and passivity, you suppress the mountains, earth, and skies. You take on a burden before which they express their impotence, and from which they shrink, and you assume a sphere more extensive and vaster than them. Whereas in regard to the second aspect, you surpass the mountains, earth, and skies, and you take on a burden before which express their impotence and from which they shrink. And you assume a sphere more extensive and vaster than them. For when you create and do good, you are able to do so only to the extent of your own power and strength, and to the degree your hand can reach. But when you commit evil and destruction, then your evil overwhelms and your destruction spreads. For example, unbelief is an evil, a destruction, an absence of affirmation. But that single evil comprises insulting the whole universe, belittling all the divine names, and abusing all humanity. Unbelief is an evil, a destruction, and an absence of affirmation. But that single evil comprises insulting the whole universe, belittling all the divine names, and abusing all humanity. For these beings have elevated positions and important duties. They are dominical missives. divine mirrors, and divine officials. But unbelief dismisses them from their rank of being mirrors, officials charged with duties and bearing meanings, and reduces them to the level of futility and being the playthings of chance. And through the destruction of death and separation, it lowers them to the degree of being swiftly decaying ephemeral matter lacking all importance and value, to being nothing. And through the destruction of death and separation, it lowers them to the degree of being swiftly decaying ephemeral matter lacking all importance and value, to being nothing. So too, through denial, it insults the divine names, the inscriptions, manifestations, and beauties of which are to be seen throughout the universe and in the mirror of beings. And it casts down to a position more abased and weaker, more powerless and needy than the lowliest transient animal, the one who holds the rank of vicegerent of the earth, known as man. I'm going to read that again. And it casts down to a position more abased and weaker, more powerless and needy than the lowliest transient animal, the one who holds the rank of vicegerent of the earth, known as man. For man is a well-composed ode of wisdom, proclaiming the manifestations of the sacred divine names, and a seed-like self-evident miracle of divine power, containing all the members of an eternal tree, and who, with assuming the supreme trust, rose to being higher than the earth, sky, and mountains, and gained superiority over the angels. I'm going to read that again. For man is a well-composed ode of wisdom, proclaiming the manifestations of the sacred divine names, and a seed-like self-evident miracle of divine power containing all the members of an eternal tree, and who, with assuming the supreme trust, rose to being higher than the earth, sky, and mountains, and gained superiority over the angels. It reduces him to the level of being a common signboard, lacking all meaning, confused, and swiftly decaying. I think this is where you wanted me to read up to.
Oh, I guess that's enough. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Anyone wants to start discussing? We can start reading from the beginning and discuss. Or if you want to say something, Qasim, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I had a question with the first paragraph. Basically, I mean, if I try to explain it in the words that I understand, it's saying that there are two aspects to a person or a man. And the first aspect refers to, like, as it refers to the good acts and positivity, and the second aspect refers to the destruction and non-existence. It seems that the argument that's being made is pretty much of accountability. And it's, for how I understand it, it's saying that the first aspect, which is the good, how I understand it again is basically we're not essentially taking credit for that aspect. However, the second aspect, which is of, I guess, evil and destruction, we're now accountable and responsible for not just, I guess, the initial exercise of the will, in I guess choosing that denial or in choosing that aspect of our creation, but also the domino effect that takes place. So, one action or one act that might lead to another. So if this is what's being said, I would like to understand how come as it doesn't make sense to me as to how we're more liable, accountable for the latter, which is the second aspect of destruction and evil, as opposed to the first aspect of good. Thanks.
Anyone wants to say something? Fariha, go on, please.
Definitely, the author is starting off with how the ingredients that the human being is made up of. So definitely two aspects. And choosing one aspect over the other, from what I understand, has to do with one's free choice, free will. And so if I'm following one aspect, which the author mentions, one is that of creation, good, acts, and positivity, I'm just letting myself go, just like, letting water run out of the faucet, just, the way I'm supposed to function. However, the other side, which is really strong use of words like destruction, non-existent, evil, negativity, and passivity, that really has to do with, again, my usage of free will. So if I put I don't let the water flow from the faucet. So then definitely that's destruction, that's evil, and negativity. So that's what I understand from this side of things. But definitely there's more that is being said in the passage, and I think we should dig deeper into I guess going forward, but I don't know if that answers the question being asked.
Yusuf, you want to say something?
So what I have in mind was, so before the first remark, he was talking about the path that human can take, either to the lowest of the law or become better than the angels. And now in these two paragraphs, he is drawing a picture in which man has the capacity to go to lowest of the law. Apparently within at least these two paragraphs, he didn't define a method to rise. Because in terms of doing good, we are super limited. But when it comes to doing evil, it just propagates. So we have, if you like, a very inherent talent to go bad, to the lowest of the law. So I don't know how he's going to turn the table to the other aspect of it and show us that human can rise to the good or become better than the angels. But at least apparently now what is out there is human can really go to the lowest of the low. I mean, especially the example that he gave about unbelief. Yeah, with just a choice that I don't want to see the truth, the whole universe becomes dark for me. Such a huge crime that I do, and I also suffer from that as well. And it makes perfect sense. I can clearly see that it puts me to the lowest of the low with my choice. But when I try to build something, I don't know what he's going to say next, but at least for now, yes, in terms of construction, I'm very limited. I cannot put things together. I cannot create anything.
I seen someone raising hand for a second. I couldn't see the name, sorry. If I'm not mistaken. Oh, go ahead, please. Aisha, was it you?
I don't think so, but I do have something to say.
Go ahead, please, then.
Okay. I was just thinking about in the paragraph where it says, for when you create and do good, you're able to do so only to the extent of your own power and strength. But when I commit evil and destruction, it spreads and overwhelms. This is just an example I thought off the bat of my head. But I was thinking about how I can, in my limited capacity, right, I can take a seed, I can plant it in a forest, and that's all I do. I just use my free will to put the seed into the ground, and the rest, is created. I'm not involved in any aspect to it. So I guess the good part of my role, if any, is very, very limited. Yet if I take, a piece of a match or a timber and I light it on fire and I just throw it into the forest, it's going to light up the entire forest and destroy it and completely turn it into ashes and overwhelm it, if you will. So I thought that was for me a helpful way of thinking about how my acts in terms of positivity or good, right, are very limited in terms of how far my arms can reach, but I am very easily capable of committing large degrees of destruction that bypass my own, I guess, power, if that makes sense.
I think it was a great example. The forest example was great, I think. Osman says something in comments. He says, we should keep in mind the first two paragraphs when we are trying to answer this question.
I think it is important to see the full picture in terms of how the text presents the case. So as Yusuf was pointing out, we are trying to understand the verse saying that man is created in the best form, and then he was sent down to the lowest of the low, except those who believe, right? And when Nursi tries to understand this verse, he started with the infinite needs, if you like, of man that is connected with every part of the world. And then he talked about finding a true object of worship would be the only answer to those needs. So that was the first step. Now he's moving on to since this is also the subject of a human being, what it really means to be a human being. Now he brings up I think another aspect of human being where actually you can make choice. In addition to all those endless varieties of needs and wants and desires that you have. So and this must be also related to the verse, when it says he sent the man down to the lowest of the low. So that there must be some organic relationship between the verse, man, the question that was asked, the free will, and all the endless varieties of the desires and the wants and the needs that we have. And I think the topic should be understood within that context, what it really means to, in terms of the destruction, what it really means for man to have such a big crime and destruction when it comes to his own very essence in terms of all the needs and the wants, and how that is related to the free will and, if you like, also the ego of man, which was the first question from sister. So I just want to draw that context for discussion, I think.
That was really helpful. Thank you very much. Because I was thinking when he says, in regard to the first aspect, you are lower than a bee or sparrow and weaker than a spider or fly. And I was asking myself, is this really true? Because I can build houses, I can build even the spacecraft, right? Not me, but as the humanity. How we are lower than a bee or a spider. Look at the cities that we build. And then you remember what Osman was saying, all your needs and desires. Right? The human being in a unique position, I guess, in the creation, that somebody talks about sending a rocket to the Mars, and you can easily, not because you are spoiled, but you can easily say, so what? Because this is nothing for you as compared to what you need. And it wouldn't solve your let's say the usual phrase we always use, your existential worries, it will not help you. It will not solve the problem that your mother will die or already dead. It will not solve the problem that your friends will leave you, or you are getting older, or you don't enjoy the apple anymore, or you hate cold. When it is stormy, your entire day is destroyed. Somebody starts a colony on Mars, which is as compared to a spider, it can only build a web. So amazing, but at the same time, you say, so what? And I guess it makes sense when you take account all your needs and desires, all your goals, what you really want, what makes you happy, what makes you in peace. And you see that all these cities, the buildings, or cars, or machines, or books, everything written. Like even let's say from an intellectual perspective, the most valuable thing, right, the books, they don't satisfy you. You try entire life, you read everything you can find, you fill the shelves, and nothing.
Relatively speaking, the spider, whatever it needs, it can fulfill the best of it. So the house of the spider is the best house in which a spider can live. But for human, even if you compare human, let's say, if I were to be just living in a town, maybe 100 years ago, or some part of the world which is living the civilization that was 100 years back, they are raising their own onion and scallion from their own garden. They have their own eggs and everything. Maybe they are more satisfied than who I am today, because my needs are expanding every day with the civilization, and it is becoming more and more far away from me. So this is why I am miserable in here. I cannot fulfill any of my needs, but spider can. Spider, whatever it needs, it's accessible to spider.
Yeah, at least from your perspective, even when you make the comparison with the past, and we know probably they had this exactly same problem and they had the exactly same misery. But the fact that we make such a comparison, this fact itself shows that human is never satisfied. Because in past, probably they were waiting for the future to come, to save them. And in the future, relatively speaking, of course, we're trying to go back in the past to save us. So there is no place for you as a home. You are always living in a guest house.
We are always poor, and this was his very initial statement about man. We are needy, this is who we are. And because of this neediness, still, but the neediness of a bird, of a spider, is not as much as ours. This is why we are falling so short compared to a spider, because they're not as needy as we are. And whatever they need is being provided to them right out. Yeah, I am in need of oxygen. I am being provided with oxygen. But just someone shows or sends pictures from space station. I envy them, but I cannot go to space station. And the spider, I doubt if going to be envying the spiders in the space station.
Yeah, and going back, what Qasim was asking about responsibility or being accountable, I guess it would make maybe a little bit more sense if we take it from, again, our own perspective. So I guess what author's talking about here is how we see the reality, rather than what you are or what you are going to be held responsible. this is how we see the reality. This is how we live reality. With every choice I make, as Osman was saying, and some other people, sorry for not remembering the names. Here, I guess the key word is the free will. You have a free will, you have a power of choice, but through the choices you make, you always end up in misery. You try to do something good, what you get is either something mediocre or even lower than that, and you do a simple mistake and your entire life is destroyed. It's not that, you will be held accountable, but you already in this life, at the moment, you see that your mistakes causes a lot of trouble for you. Like you say something, just a sentence or just even a word to your boss, let's say, or someone that you are not supposed to say, and you are done, just with one word. And then, even if you write an entire book, your good will not solve the problem. So it's, again, from our perspective, it's really easy to destroy things, as Ayşenur was saying. We just throw the light match, a single match, an entire forest is gone. So when we think that way, I guess the question is then, what is the utility of choices? Why I'm trying to do things? Because everything is just gives me distraction, gives me misery, nothing else. When I try to do something good, even if I build a spacecraft, right? I'm obsessed with the spacecraft. If you build a spacecraft, it won't help you. It will be just a tiny thing in your life. So this is how I understand the first paragraph. There are some comments. Let me read the comments and then Qasim, please go ahead. Osman says the distraction must have something to do with being created in the best form. Something more internal. Yes, great point. At least the way I understand is what Osman is saying. Even the distractions that we experience, or even the suffering that we experience through our choices, they are part of being created in the best form. So we should also look for wisdom in them. That's what I understood from Osman. And then Qasim, please go ahead.
So, thank you everyone for chiming in. So definitely the example that Fariha and Ayşenur both provided helped, and Birkan, yours too. And I just wanted to clarify that I am thinking about this paragraph from my perspective. And I guess if I was to use an example, that let's say I find myself in a situation where I am given a beautiful decoration piece and I did not create the decoration piece. I find myself in need of appreciating that decoration piece, and I'm able to, I guess, acknowledge that I am, let's say, in need of that decoration piece, right? And if I was to use this analogy into an actual reality, then we can call that decoration piece life or happiness or satisfaction, anything that one, I guess, finds themselves in the need for, or even eternal existence, if one was to think about it till that extent. So if I find myself in, I guess, with that decoration piece and in need of that, I feel like the paragraph here is basically saying that if I was to ignore that reality, right? If I was to focus on the aspect of destruction and evil, and let's say don't take care of that, drop it, throw it, disregard it, then I am completely, I guess, from my perspective, I can confirm that I should be held accountable, or I would feel accountable for destroying that. However, if I am not, I guess if I'm not destroying it, if I'm not the one that's taking care of it, but I'm also not exploiting it. So I guess free will is also taking place there, right? Where I'm letting that decoration piece be as it was, or be as it is given to me in the situation that I'm in. And I guess in taking any credit for using my free will, which again has been given to me, to let the decoration piece be as it is and not destroy it, I guess in taking credit for it, I'm saying the paragraph states that, I am the lowest of the low, like, the lower than a bee or a sparrow. And I find it very contradicting to the verse, which is, again, if I was to read it, indeed, we have created man of the most excellent of the patterns, right? So we're basically, I guess I'm confirming that I've been created in the most excellent of the patterns, then sent him down to the lowest of the low, except those who believe and do good deeds. So, right, so the concept of believing and doing good deeds, for me, I guess, is very much related to someone who is, I guess, exercising their free will and taking care of that decoration piece, right? Like not exploiting their, I guess, their reality. So I guess in doing so, how am I now lower than a bee or a sparrow? The only thing I can still think of is that it's taking ownership of that. And if I think only in taking ownership of that can one go to the lowest of the low and makes me, I guess, of the unbelief. But if I attribute ownership of this situation or the circumstances to, I guess, the one that creates all of it to begin with, then I am of the belief and not of the lowest of the low. Thank you.
Jazakallah for the clarification. I guess it will be clear as we study the next paragraph, as he start talking about the distraction. I guess it will be clear what distraction means and so on. But Osman asking for, I guess, the permission to talk. Go ahead, please, Osman.
Yeah, just to make sure I understood the comments or the question. So if it's decorative, some like, what was it, like the example? A piece of decoration that was given to me that I was like trusted with it. And let's say like I used my free will in the way that I didn't do anything with it. Apparently, seemingly, like I'm not really like even like using my free will in terms of the distraction. I'm just like simply ignoring it, let's say. Isn't that it like actual destruction in itself? And isn't there like some responsibility there that actually puts me to a position that actually I'm exploiting that trust?
That's a good comment. If I can respond back, I do agree that if one is not mindful of it, then yes, absolutely, it's no different than destroying it or not making good use of the trust. However, if one is mindful of it, which was my intent, like while being mindful, I am not destroying it. I'm, I guess, exercising my free will to let it be and take care of it in that instance. And well, I don't mean take care of it in the sense that I'm taking care of it, but I'm not exploiting it. Because of my, I guess, because there's free will still being exercised, you, in my opinion, I think you hold some level of accountability for that as well. As long as you're mindful of it, which makes you of the belief, you know, again, like choosing not to do something in itself is an action. So it depends on how mindful you are of that action at that point.
I just want to quickly add an analogy that came to my mind that I remembered from before, and maybe some of you might have heard it before, which seems to fit in with what's being said and has helped me understand. Imagine if one is to imagine themselves as a gardener, right? And our sole duty is to there are many gardeners perhaps in a large garden, and my duty is to just, you know, turn on the faucet and let the water flow. And if I don't do that, if I close the faucet, then the entire garden wilts away, despite all the efforts that is being put into, you know, perhaps, I don't know, taking care of the garden, the flowers, I don't know, making sure all their gardening needs are being taken care of. So in which case, by letting the water flow through the faucet, I'm acting in alignment with what is already easy to me, what is already my duty. And that garden, in this case, represents what is going to also make me happy, what is going to make me fulfill my duty. Whereas if I choose to keep or if I turn the faucet off, or if it's already off and if I don't turn it on, which means, you know, if I choose to do nothing, which is a choice, or if I go ahead and do something that is contrary to what my duty is, then in that seemingly small action, then I get the entire garden wilts away, and this massive destruction as a result of a small action. So I don't know if I'm completely following up with everything that's being said, but this example has made it easier for me to kind of try to follow. Thank you.
Jazakallah, yes, all these examples are really great. To me, one thing just to highlight, I guess, at least for me, it is more useful when something is about me. Not that I'm egoist or, you know, selfish, but it's easier to understand. So if I'm hungry, and if there's a food on top of a table, on the table, and if I don't eat this food, this is destruction for me. Right? You don't have to destroy the food. You don't have to destroy, or you do it like the artwork. If you need the pleasure, if you need the satisfaction, and if you block the way you are sustained, then you destroy yourself, you destroy your satisfaction. So I guess it's more important than that what kind of sustenance you ignore, what kind of bounty that you refuse to receive, so that you find yourself in misery, that you stay hungry. The second paragraph, he said, for example, unbelief is an evil, a distraction. Right? Unbelief is an evil, distraction, an absence of affirmation. But that single evil comprises insulting the whole universe, belittling all the divine names, and abusing all humanity. A single evil, just unbelief of something, destroys your entire universe. And this happens all the time to me. Whenever I have a problem with someone at work, let's say, I wake up in misery, I go to work in misery, I work in misery, I come back in misery, and so on. Just by imagining that my future is not secure anymore because of this fight that I had, or because of this disconnection with my colleagues that I had. And because I believe, or let's put it the right way, because I refuse to believe that my future security is from my Lord, not from my colleagues or my boss, I destroy my entire life, my entire universe. Like the way, I don't know, I'm not like making up things. I really remember, like the life seems so gray at that moment. You cannot enjoy anything. Or if the work environment is not a good example for you, think about your relationship with your loved ones, your family. Whenever you assume a false lordship on anyone, either yourself or your mother or your father, your friend, your wife, I would say girlfriend, but I remember that we are all Muslims, so anyway. Regardless of who you attribute or what, even sometimes we attribute lordship to things, like my chair, my table. We do this. And whenever we do that, the lives become miserable. Like, as author says in the rest of the paragraph, we surrender ourselves to blind forces, to blind causes. I surrender myself to a colleague, to a friend. She or he cannot help me with my future. But I ask from her my security, and I cannot receive it. And the way I see the trees, where I see the birds, where I see the other people changed in that moment. But once I realize the mistake, once I say, okay, become what you are doing, like, is not right, it's like a switch. Right? Then if the light was off, then suddenly light is on. You just forget about all this misery. You forget about all the problems. You start enjoying it. So what I'm saying is the sustenance, the bounties, they always there waiting for you to enjoy, waiting for you to be satisfied. But through the perspective you have, through the unbelief you hold, you refuse them, you destroy them. So I don't think when it comes to matters of the belief, there is a neutral position. I don't think such thing exists. You either receive the bounties, you either receive the mercy, you enjoy the love in the universe, you are satisfied in this moment, or you destroy them and you are in misery. Just try to think about the moments that you do not enjoy the life. Like, you don't have to, act as if there are no such moments, because we are believers. Just try to remember them and ask yourself, like, was it because of my perspective, or was it because of because I was worshiping a false idol? And at least to me, the answer is always yes. Because every time I realize this mistake, as I said, like as if a light switch is turned on, everything is just gone. Now all the suffering, it's just gone. So yeah, this is what I want to say. Anyone wants to say something? Otherwise, we can continue reading. Nothing? Oh, there's one comment from Osman.
I just wanted to add that, we're all this.
Oh, Faria, I would say we cannot hear you, but then you turned off the mic. I guess you also realized your sound is interrupted. Yes. So you can check the connection quality. Meanwhile, let me read what Osman is saying. He says, the man is created in the best form to get to know the creator, I assume. He is also given will and ego to make use of them to get into the training of knowing him. It depends on our free will, what we do with the qualities we are given. I guess this is the nice summary of the part that we are reading. Osman continues saying something, which may lead us to suffering and destruction. So let me read them in combination. It depends on our free will, what we do with the qualities we are given, which may lead us to suffering and destruction. So if you do not use your qualities in the right way, yes, you find yourself in suffering constantly.
I am just realizing that given the human condition of neediness, and that human is related to the whole existence, I cannot be indifferent. So as I refuse to accept the truth, I am falling into so much of those things that he listed. And in there, he's saying that, for instance, it's going to be a crime against divine names. It's going to be a crime against the whole existence or all the creatures. It's going to be a crime against humanity, the humanness. So I am thinking of it as if it is, I am really making a crime against them. But it sounds more like I cannot be indifferent to them. And in my own world, now all of them are becoming dark. And this is what I am deeply feeling. But so something that's supposed to be shiny is becoming dark in my world. This is why I am very capable in terms of evil, darkening the light. But if I am such a person, how much am I able to enlighten my world? In terms of good, how much capable I am within myself, if I am to just rely on myself. And now let's go back and see what the philosophy is offering us, or the materialistic worldview is offering us in terms of enlightening the world. We are very limited in this sense. Very limited, like maybe we need to go to a movie for 2 hours and enjoy the moment. This is what we can do in terms of goodness, a very temporary goodness. After the movie finishes, we are back to our dark world. So this is, in this way, now I can make sense of these two paragraphs. My limitedness in terms of good, and my being vast in terms of evil. And of course, the other examples that were given makes perfect sense in terms of, in the material aspect, this is also the case. And the next paragraph is going to give the example of building an apartment versus demolishing an apartment. In the material sense, still there's this imbalance, but also in terms of my world, my personal perspective of the existence. When it comes to destruction, I am vast. But when it comes to enlightenment, if I rely on myself only, I cannot do anything really.
When you were saying insulting the things, animals, the plants, and so on, it reminded me the discussion we were having when we were walking to home with Yusuf about the storm, the wind. So at the workplace, I was watching the outside. As I said at the beginning, we have a stormy weather here at Philadelphia. I was watching the outside, the storm, just for a moment, don't get me wrong. Like I do not waste the time at work by watching the outside, just for a moment. I was looking at the storm with some friends. Right? Because it's a heavy storm with snows and everything. Everyone was interested, so watching the storm outside. And the trees are, the moving, shaking. The people trying to walk, they having the difficulty because of the strong wind. I said, wow, look at this, such a beautiful thing. I said, and the friend next to me, he knows me. Well, he said, oh, again, we can't start with philosophizing. And then he said, come on, you will need to walk like in a few minutes, right? It's something bad. So I was comparing like the way I see the wind, what it means to me, which is so beautiful. And the other perspective, I also have this perspective. I'm not trying to, belittle or insult my friend. It's just a reminder of what I do usually. The other perspective, you can take the wind, and they are completely opposite. And from one perspective, you say, wow, look at such a power created in front of you, right? It's just the air. You most of the time take it as empty, and there is nothing there. But then something starts moving it, and you realize that it was not empty. That there is something there to move. And when you think about such a motion, like you looking around, there is no boundaries, or it's just open space. An entire open space, like entire air mass, is moving. Such a power, such a demonstration of the power, the glory. Like trees shaking, trees bending by air. It's not even there most of the time for you. But now even a tree, which is maybe 100 times stronger than you, cannot stand. This is like, so beautiful, so powerful again, so like magnificent. This is wind for you from one perspective, the stone. Another perspective, you see it as an evil, as a rival, as an opponent. Like I want to walk, and damn to you, the wind, you are preventing it. You are an enemy for me. So I guess, yes, when he says we insult everything, the entire universe, it's not really hard to accept that. This is what we do all the time. You hit your foot to a table, and the table, which is so useful, like it serves you, becomes an enemy for you. Let me read the first comment, and then Qasim, I will give the mic to you. Osman says the wind destroyed all power line and you stay in dark. Yes, this is how we see. I guess there is no electricity in their region. And then even with this destruction of the power line, like amazement it causes, like this, the electricity going off. The realization that you have, like, yeah, there was an electricity before that I was not appreciating. And when you realize how hard it is to have the electricity, this simple, destruction of power line is just a few seconds of work, I guess, for wind. It becomes so powerful again. Such a beauty. Qasim want to say something?
Mohammed Said has a comment, I guess.
Oh, there's another comment? Sorry.
Before Osman.
Oh, before Osman. Okay. Sorry, Mohammed. Let me read that. The fact that the existence can be interpreted this way or the other is directly connected with my power of choice and the way I interpret it. Yes. Yes. Again, a very beautiful summary. Yeah, I guess this is actually a really good point, because when I see the possibility of interpretation in the existence, like I can take things in one way or another, which reminds me the fact that I have a free will, I have a choice. Because sometimes human also neglects or forgets about his or her free will as well.
But my free will can reject to see the beauty out there, which opens up this darkness to me. But while rejecting to see the beauty, I cannot make up beauties with my own free will. My choice is either to see the beauty which is out there, but if I reject that, I fell into a darkness, and there is no way for me to get out of this darkness with my free will. I cannot imagine meaning within the existence by myself. This is where the distinction between wahi and philosophy comes into. Because
revelation and philosophy.
Revelation and philosophy. Because revelation is showing me the beauty which is being manifest in the existence. But philosophy is rejecting this aspect of it. And now that you need to come up with your own explanation for meaning in the existence. So, but the history of philosophy tells us that we are falling very short in this sense. So we are not able to provide any enlightenment by ourselves. So we are very short in this sense. But when it comes to darkness, yes, by rejecting the truth, we are already falling into darkness.
Qasim, he has been waiting for, I guess, his turn. Go ahead, please, Qasim.
It's okay. Everyone's comments have been super helpful. I just had a comment, or I guess, a comment on what you said earlier, Birkan, about, I guess, the snowstorm, or, hitting your foot on the corner of the table and how it hurts. I think as I dig deeper into the second paragraph that we read earlier, I think the key word here is really unbelief. And I guess the reason why I want to emphasize more on this from my perspective is I think there are always perhaps two parallel, I call it existence or call it realities, where, for lack of a better term, one is very material and the other one is more, I guess, existential, or perhaps metaphysical. And what I mean by that is, again, if I hit, my leg on the corner of the table and I am in pain, I don't think that the material reality, or at least from my perspective, I cannot say, you know what, beautiful, I guess, experience or collision of events, whatever you want to call it. At that time, my, I guess, material reality is that I am in extreme pain. And when I say I guess I can say my body is in extreme pain. However, my, I guess, metaphysical realization, or I guess the meaningful aspect of the existence of that, I guess, pain, is indeed very beautiful. That, hey, you know what? At this moment, if I, through my consciousness, confirm the reality, which is I do not like to be in pain, then that event becomes very beautiful at perhaps a metaphysical level. However, I don't think the ground reality changes at that time, which is the fact that you are in pain. If I was just to give another example, we just came from a different discussion, but the existence of a snake, right? No one says that a snake, the existence of a snake is bad necessarily, because, for whatever purpose that snake fulfills for itself. However, the existence of a snake, or the presence of a snake in the same room where I am, again, more or less a material reality, is disliked by me, right? So it's like I want to be further away from that, and I have to confirm that as well. So I think, again, as we view destruction, as we view the snowstorms or the people walking, it's viewing that through both of those lenses, where one can say, okay, the material reality is, yes, the wind is so strong that it might, I don't know, drop a tree branch on my head and I might be paralyzed for the rest of my life, but that's the material reality. However, the metaphysical reality is, again, transcends beyond in my opinion, transcends beyond the, I guess, limitations of where the material aspect of things end. And that's where I can, just through belief or consciousness, can come to the realization that, you know what, I am not in need of, I guess I'm in need of eternal or permanent satisfaction, and not in need of pain. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, let's continue then. For these beings, let me start from previous one, sorry.
Can I make a comment? Sorry.
Oh, awesome, go ahead, please, yeah.
So the second paragraph, first sentence, I really like it because of the way the author is describing unbelief. He says it's an evil, a destruction. And I like the word, like the phrase, an absence of affirmation, which implies to me that one is not using something that is given one of those aspects in the earlier paragraphs, which alludes to the given free will. So anytime we are not exercising that free will, we are not able to affirm anything. And that just goes to the pure evil part. And again, later on in the paragraph, the author makes the point of, just like unbelief, through denial, which is also related to the same thing, making use of our given free will. We have those options either to affirm or to deny. So that's something that just stood out for me. So I really like an absence of affirmation as being equal to unbelief.
I just want to really quickly add, thank you for that. Awesome. I was thinking, absence of, I guess, conscious use of free will. I would add on to what you've said, because going back to the garden example, right? If the faucet is closed and I don't choose to turn it on, I choose not to do anything, but in my not doing anything, it's still a choice. So I feel like there is still, it's not just me. I don't know if one can say that I'm not using my free will. I'm using my free will not to use it consciously, I guess perhaps would be another way of saying it. But I feel like consciousness and free will are so closely linked to one another in this example. But thank you.
Yeah, absolutely agree to that. Thank you for the addition.
Awesome. Since you interrupted me reading, maybe you want to read a few sentences and discuss for us.
Okay. Inshallah. So where do you want me to read from? From the next part? Okay, so I can start the second paragraph. For example, unbelief is an evil, a destruction, an absence of affirmation. We just discussed that, okay? So now let's focus on how that becomes a destruction. So, but that single evil comprises insulting the whole universe, belittling all the divine names, and abusing all humanity. So with this phrase, by not using, as Khadija was saying about our consciousness and the free will, we are not really being human because we are not exercising that. And that evil actually insults the whole universe. Why? Because we are not affirming anything by using those, at least those two qualities that we are given. And we don't get to the meaning of those things, right? So we are really not appreciating or admiring what the creation is. For example, the examples that Birkan you were giving also with the storm that you were observing, or the other examples that were given. So please add on if anybody wants to add.
If Faraz was unmuted, I muted him because of the background noise. So if you want to say something, Faraz, go ahead, please.
Yes. I should apologize. I've been in and out of discussion due to some family situation in the house. So I apologize for repeating something already said or not taking something into account. Whatever I heard is wonderful. I just wanted to say, it's interesting, very nice of Asim and Khadija to talk about affirmation. Because as I've been reading these paragraphs, I've been thinking, what is Nursi trying to say, and moreover, what is God trying to tell me in this chapter? And one thing that came to mind was, the stark contrast that he's drawing, and it boils down to this affirmation. So what am I? Why is there no affirmation? So we've been talking about free will, and we don't use our capacities. I'm just trying to think, why don't we use? What is? And it seems to me that it's important to realize that this. That I do find myself in a world where I cannot affirm without belief. And so therefore, what is belief? Belief is to see the sign. Sign of what? Sign to see them as divine. And he says divine, but which, really what we can say is absolute, not lacking anything, not subject to disappearing, not subject to death, not subject to change, and so I'm really thinking the verse is telling me, see if you can affirm that the world is beautiful, the life is beautiful. And I look at myself and say, I find a lot of things beautiful, but then they are subject to death and they have limits. And so I find myself a creature who wants to affirm absolutely beautiful, absolute beauty. I'm not satisfied with instances of these things, these flashes of beauty that I see, but then they go. And so I find myself with this problem. I want to affirm, but I can't affirm. And the chapter is saying, there's only one way to actually affirm. And so therefore, to reconcile yourself with this existence as you know it, as what you experience, and that way is belief. So belief is a solution to a problem. Believing makes possible the affirmation that you long for as a human being. You want to affirm that there is beauty, there's absolute beauty. You want to know there is absolute life, never-ending eternal life that is perfect in every way. And I say, yes, I want to affirm this. I want to affirm that I am such a being who should exist forever and exist in a state of perfect contentment. That's what I affirm. Yes, I am that. But I am so afraid of this aspect of myself because this is the aspect of me that lands me into misery and trouble because I find none of it around me. I want to live, but I find death around me. And I find myself in that, anxiety and panic and saying, I cannot want life, because if I want it too much, I will go mad, because there is no. So let me not think about it. Let me not want absolute life. Let me not. And this is where I find myself, turned against myself. There's a part of me that says, you don't want to die. The other part says, you have to die. And then everyone dies, you must die. And the other half doesn't believe it, but I just keep thinking, okay, let's postpone it for another day. Let me not think about death. And so it's just, this stark contrast that I think Nursi is trying to just amplify through his examples, saying that we have a lot of capacity to destroy, but only a little bit capacity to good. It's really, just basically, I see it as a way of just amplifying that contrast for me to say, I want to affirm, but I cannot affirm. And so how can I affirm? How can I affirm that, yes, there is beauty, and the way is belief, and he says belief is, what is belief? And the belief is simply looking at these things that seem inadequate. Only belief makes them adequate. The beauty around me is inadequate on its own, in itself, but it is adequate if I believe that it is a reflection of it is a divine official that is charged with this duty. And so anyway, I think all of this, what I said, was very helpful for me. So sorry for my selfishness, but maybe I said exactly what other people have said, and that's just fine. But I find myself wanting to affirm and unable to affirm without belief. And it's only with belief, it seems, that affirmation can become possible.
Jazakallah khair. At least the way I understood is the point you touched upon was only sparsely discussed, if any. So thank you for the contribution. That was great. Qasim, he wants to say something, so I'm turning off my mic.
Yes. So I wanted to just thank Faraz for actually highlighting the word affirmation, since I guess sometimes we just objectify things and take them for what we previously understand. So I recently, I guess, was reading an article about it, and I just found it online, and I wanted to kind of share just this one phrase from it, which was very interesting, and I think it hopefully might add on to our discussion as well. It said, affirmation includes the words of the heart, which is belief, and the actions of the heart, which is compliance. And I found this very, I guess, interesting, because I guess to our conversation, or what Brother Faraz was saying earlier about affirmation and belief like being so close, or I guess belief being part of the affirmation. The other aspect of this, or I guess the additional aspect of this, was the actions of the heart, and it said, which is compliance. And I found the word compliance very interesting, because to be compliant to something, I guess, is more or less, again, acknowledging or kind of just going with the flow, for lack of a better term. Like, you don't need to do anything extra. You just need to acknowledge the reality or what's already there, I guess, in creation. And I guess both of these are so interlinked, where, again, just being compliant with one's reality, which is now categorized as the action of the heart, and leads to one's belief or confirmation or conviction of something, which is, again, the words of the heart, which sums up to be affirmation. Just wanted to share that.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. These are really like heavy words that we, I guess, should spend time think about them. Affirmation, compliance, or belief. Like affirmation of what, as far as was saying. I guess it becomes even more interesting, intriguing. Like, what do I want to affirm? What it is that I care about affirming? I don't care about affirming a mathematical equation sometimes, but there are certain things that I want to affirm, that I want to find the truth. Yusuf, he wants to say something. So go ahead, please, Yusuf. Since I seen your hand, I muted ourselves. Okay. Do you want to say something? No? Okay. There was another one who either raised the hand, I seen someone raised hand, and I also remember somebody tried to turn on the microphone. So if you want to say something, please go ahead. No? Okay. Probably I'm getting old. Sorry. So let's continue reading then. For these beings have elevated positions and important duties. They are dominical missives, divine mirrors, and divine officials. But unbelief dismisses them from their rank of being mirrors, officials, charged with duties. Officials charged with the duties. So officials having some duties. And bearing meanings, and reduces them to the level of futility and being the playthings of chance. And reduces them to the level of futility, sorry for that, and being the playthings of chance. And through the destruction of death and separation, it lowers them to the degree of being severely decaying, ephemeral matter, lacking all importance and value to being nothing. So we can, I guess, read this part from a perspective which gives value to truth and say that, oh yeah, if the truth of the things is being a mirror, when you deny their mirrorness, you're making a crime, you're committing a crime. But I guess we shouldn't forget that we care about what we see from the mirror. Otherwise, who cares about, if you deny the mirrorness of something or not? If I call my book as an orange, I just, have fun, that's all. But if I need what is in the book, and I take it as an orange and try to eat it, then the outcome matters to me. Because I care about what it is there. I care about what is reflected through the mirrors. I need them. Right? Going back to the very beginning, I am needy, and my sustenance provided through these mirrors. And if I deny their mirrorness, or as very beautifully put with Khadija and others, if I deny their conscious nature, if I forget about my own consciousness, then outcome really matters. Like the loneliness in life, loneliness in the universe, while everything is constantly changing, the ways you don't like storm, you're getting older. One day you are happy with your family or wife, the other day you have a fight. And you find yourself lonely. You want a companion, but you don't find anyone. Then denying the conscious nature of things, denying the conscious nature of your hand, or the food you eat, or the trees around you, or friends you have, when you deny their mirrorness, when you stop seeing what they reflect, then it really matters. It's not just a matter of finding the truth or not. So I guess this is what separates what we discuss here from quote-unquote philosophy, as Yusuf was referring. When we take the reality as something to be solved, like as an equation that we need to find the coefficients, or an, I don't know, a problem that you need to, or let's say sentence just to read and see what it means. But let's say, as an external entity. Okay, I guess the keyword, what I'm looking for is external, being external. When I take the reality as external and try to decide which interpretation of it is real, it's nothing. It doesn't satisfy me. It doesn't give me anything. Like, who cares if there are angels or not if you cannot speak to them? And who cares if there is a creator or not if he's not creating you? So, yeah. Faz, go ahead, please.
I also, this kind of chapter that we are reading, it puts the question of purpose of life or purpose of human being for me front and center. What is my purpose in life? Why do I exist? And I have to ask myself, I can't look at something externally when I'm thinking about the purpose of my life. What should I look for? And I just had a couple of examples come to mind recently. Intelligent, educated people, when they speak about their struggles for the past 10, 20 years, what they've been doing, they talk about they've been trying to find their true purpose in life. They're trying to, people are trying to find out what is truly the purpose of their life. And they go through a lot of things, doing different things to get to the purpose. So I heard a friend of mine, and he said, I did this and I did this, and finally I found my purpose is to speak up against oppression and to stand for justice and the rights of someone, and I found my purpose. And there is, even as they're speaking, for me, it's not satisfactory as a purpose, but even in them, I find a certain lack of conviction about that purpose because the question remains, why is that purpose purposeful? Why should that be my purpose? What makes that, having that purpose, purposeful, meaningful, satisfactory? And then another unrelated, perhaps, example. I heard an interview of Elon Musk, trying to explore life on other planets in the universe, and something like he said, if human life was only restricted to this, or if our imagination of our future as human beings is only restricted to this planet, then it's too depressing and too boring for me. That's why I've made it my purpose to my goal to find life elsewhere in the solar system. Again, it's amusing, but also we are looking for a purpose, human beings, and the Quran, this chapter we're reading seems to say, your purpose is belief. your purpose, so your purpose for existing is to look at the things around you and receive the messages, receive message. You are an addressee. Your purpose is to encounter the things and see what messages they bring to you. That is your purpose. So your purpose of existence, and it really makes this purpose it is immediately purposeful. This purpose is immediately purposeful because it's saying it's so in line with what I want. I want eternal life. I want perfection. I want beauty that never dies. I want everything to be wise, orderly. I want everything to be, I want no harm. I want no injustice. And so it's saying, so come, your purpose is not to try to simply fight for justice. But what is the purpose? What would be the purpose in that? The purpose would be to get the message that you have a Lord who is just, who loves justice, and you are made for an existence that is perfectly just with him. Then that fighting for justice gains purpose otherwise. So, making belief a purpose is it was a very interesting idea for me, because I felt if I don't make this my purpose, I will spend all my energies and capacities doing things in search of a purpose, and I would never find it. Whereas I think what the Quranic, this chapter is trying to bring is saying, belief is the purpose, and it is very purposeful. Your purpose is affirmation of divine names. So you can start where you are, whatever you need to change the world. You need to find human beings on Mars to be able to so that you don't find life boring or depressing. All the toil that I go through to find a purpose, and mostly people that I've found end up with purposes that themselves, they look nice, but those purposes themselves don't have a purpose. They are, if you question why is that purposeful, there's no answer. It's just that that's how I feel like, I feel like justice is good. I like justice. So yeah, it seems, it's like halfway there, but then it doesn't fulfill. So purpose is very important. Purpose is very personal. My purpose in my life. And I find so many people struggling to find that purpose. And it's very interesting to think that actually believing as a process is my purpose. And if that was my purpose, how would I live? How would I interact with things?
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you. When things become personal, they become very interesting. Otherwise, they lack color, I assume. Osman was saying a few things. I want to read them, very important. You can see the beings as mirrors, I guess he says. You can see things, you can see the beings as mirrors if you see yourself as a mirror. But we have a tendency to own the qualities reflected on us, which implies unbelief. So if you see yourself as a mirror, you can see others as a mirror as well, he says. But because we claim ownership over them, the ownership over the qualities that we reflect, meaning because we don't see ourselves as mirrors, which implies unbelief, it is hard to see others as mirrors as well. And he also adds, if we can be conscious of our existence, so if we realize our own consciousness, which may sound stupid, sorry for my choice of word, Because, you know, what do you mean being conscious or realizing your own consciousness? We are all conscious, but I believe we always forget that we are conscious. He says if we can be conscious of our existence, even the feeling of pain becomes a meaningful book to read. Right? I guess it's a good example. When you have in pain, which is your, let's say, I would say the peak point, like the pinnacle of being conscious of things, and still you deny your consciousness at this point. You forget about it. You think about everything else but your consciousness. That the fact that you can have such a conscious experience. So we have around 10 minutes, I guess, 7 or 10 minutes. So if anyone wants to say some final comments, remarks, it is time. Otherwise, you will not have enough time to speak. So go ahead, please. I see someone turn on. Awesome. Okay.
No, I wanted to understand more about the second line in the second paragraph. Like, how does a single evil insult the whole universe? So I was thinking about that a little bit right now. If somebody has any suggestions on that. So let's say I say that, yeah, for example, this apple owns its own qualities. Now, how does that statement insult the whole universe?
I want to take an attempt.
Oh, yeah, please.
So I guess when you're just attributing the qualities of anything to itself, then you're not opening up, or you're not reading the full message. And the way, okay, so the author is saying then you're insulting the whole universe, because then you're insulting everything, whatever it encompasses to bring that apple into existence. There's need of sunlight, there's need of water, soil, just to name a few, and everything else that goes on in between. So that's just one single act, just, destroys the whole understanding of how everything else is coming into existence. So it's just like everything becomes just dark. I don't know if, Asim, I'm able to help out a little bit.
Okay, I guess it's time to end.